6 hours after Uduak Essien signed her new employment contract, the folder on Kang Tae-min's desk already held 2,190 days of her life. Not roses, not a warning. A folder, 7 years thick, and her signature was the only new page in it. She did not know it existed yet. She only knew the tea in her new office was her exact order, and that her chair sat angled the way she always turned her own chair at home, and that neither of those things should have been possible for a company that had interviewed her exactly once. 7 years earlier, on a highway outside Incheon, Uduak had pulled a bleeding teenage boy from a burning car with her bare hands and no Korean beyond the words for help and hospital. She left before the police arrived, because her visa paperwork was not finished, and because a foreign woman with no papers kneeling over a wrecked luxury car was not a story she wanted to explain to anyone. She never learned his name. She never thought about him again. Not really, except on nights when the smell of gasoline caught her off guard on a Seoul street corner. She did not know that the boy lived 3 more weeks in a hospital bed, and that in the last conscious hour he asked a nurse to find the woman who saved him, and gave her the only word he had, a mispronounced fragment of a name the nurse misheard from a passerby's rushed translation. She did not know that his younger brother took that fragment and spent 7 years turning it into a full name, a face, a visa history, a career. Kang Tae-min never touched the folder without gloves, not because he was afraid of being caught, but because some part of him still believed the pages inside it were sacred. He had watched her graduate from a translation program in Lagos through a hired photographer he never met in person. He had watched her sign her first Seoul apartment lease through a broker he paid in cash. He had, 3 months ago, restructured an entire foreign contracts department inside Kang Group for the sole purpose of creating a position she would apply for on her own, thinking it was chance. On her first day, she noticed him once, through the glass wall of a meeting room, watching her for 4 seconds longer than a stranger should. She told herself it was nothing. Executives watched new hires. That was normal. What was not normal was the woman named Se-yeon, his assistant, who steered her away from the 7th floor twice in one afternoon, with a gentleness that felt less like courtesy and more like containment. By the end of her first week, a drawer in her new desk that had been unlocked on Monday was locked by Thursday, and she had not touched it either day. If any of this feels familiar, if you have ever felt watched without proof, stay with me, because it gets worse before it gets clearer. And if you want the next Seoul Untold story the moment it lands, like this video, drop a comment telling me what you think Tae-min is really hiding, and subscribe, because this one has a second half coming. Uduak went looking for answers on a Friday night, when the office had emptied and Se-yeon had finally gone home. The 7th floor archive was lit in a warmer light than the rest of the building, amber instead of the cold blue-white everywhere else, and a clock on the wall ticked louder than it had any right to in a room built from steel and glass. The drawer that had been locked opened easily. Inside was a folder, slim, black, worn soft at the corners from years of being opened and closed. Her own graduation photo looked back at her first, then the lease to her first apartment, then a newspaper clipping, yellowed at the edges, a photograph of a wrecked car on a highway outside Incheon, and beneath it, a single paragraph about an unidentified woman who saved a passenger and left the scene before authorities arrived. She was still holding the clipping when the archive door opened behind her. Kang Tae-min did not deny anything. He told her, in a voice with none of the boardroom coldness she had come to expect from him, that the boy in that photograph was his older brother, Tae-hyun, and that Tae-hyun did not die on that highway. He died 3 weeks later in a hospital bed, asking a nurse to find the woman who pulled him out, giving her a mispronounced fragment of a name that was the only thing he had breath left to offer. Uduak asked him, very quietly, whether 7 years of watching a stranger was gratitude or something he had let curdle into something else entirely. He did not have an answer that made it better. He only had the truth, which was that he did not know how to stop, and that stopping had never once occurred to him as an option. It was Se-yeon who found them there, and Se-yeon who finally told Uduak the part neither Kangman had said out loud. She had not been placed on this floor to watch Uduak. She had been placed by Tae-min's own father to watch Tae-min, because the family considered a chairman's 7-year fixation a liability the company could not survive if it ever became public. Uduak stood in that archive room with the weight of 2 men's secrets in her hands, one who had saved a stranger without meaning to become anyone's obsession, and one whose grief had never learned where devotion ends and control begins. She did not scream. She did not run either. She closed the folder, and she walked out of the building with it still in her bag. At home, in the only light in this whole story that was ever truly warm, she sat with the folder open on her lap. 7 years of her own life staring back at her from someone else's hands. She did not call the number he had left folded inside the back cover. She did not throw the folder away. Her hand rested on the first page, the highway. 7 years ago, the beginning of a story she never knew she was already living. If you want to know what she does next, whether she goes back to that 7th floor or disappears from Kang Group entirely, tell me in the comments, and stay close, because Seoul Untold is not done with this one.